In a world overrun by mutant frogs, with a dwindling human population, a heinous man is absolved of all crimes so he can impregnate as many women as possible. He traverses the nuclear wasteland, fights reptiles, and tames feral women with his fertility. Femininity in the post-apocalypse.
Hello there, you brainy babes of the Badlands. You're listening to another episode of Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse, a feminist exploration of dystopian media. I'm your host, Claire Lockhart. I'm an artist who spends countless hours painting as an attempt to convince my neighbors of my humanity, but I often worry about the effectiveness of such a slow approach. Since it's impossible for me to create highly detailed oil paintings critiquing the patriarchy quickly, I've resorted to podcasting. This gives me the excuse to discuss end-of-the-world media with other incredible artists. My amazing guest and I are going to chat about the baffling 1988 movie Hell Comes to Frogtown. We'll cover the plot, rate it, and then I'll introduce you to the next recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree from the unaccredited College of Clare. Thank you for joining me, my friends. I know that you are going to adore my guest. Nicole Huff is a fantastic photographer who is well known for her iconic work of Barbie and Ken dolls. You may recognize her as a previous recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree from UCK, or maybe you admired her work in the last Thunder Domesticity National Exhibition I curated. Perhaps you've spotted Nicole and her husband in their Star Trek uniforms at a convention. Regardless, you need to check out her photography at NicoleHuff.com, which is spelled NicoleHuff.com. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Nicole.
Thank you. Believe me, the honor is mine, my dear.
It is always a delight to chat with you. I know you're so busy between all your art making, the snowstorm you're currently enduring, and also taking time away from watching Svengoolie.
You know, I have to say, if I am home on a Saturday, you are going to find me plopped on the couch with a Svengoolie t-shirt, happily enjoying my favorite Chicago area horror host. Totally on the lines of like Elvira. You know, he just brings on these great Universal monster movies, you know, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, Dracula, Abbott and Costello, and then tons of B movies too. It's a delight.
And I have heard that some of your artwork has been featured on this program.
Now, this was one of those things that was kind of a bucket list item for me. I never really thought it would happen, but he does a viewer segment where he reads, you know, little viewer mail, shows viewer art, pictures where people wear his t-shirts out and about. And I mean, he gets tons of people sending him stuff all the time. And I'm like, you know what? With my Barbie photos, I love the creature from the Black Lagoon. And I had a piece with Barbie and the creature chilling on the beach. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to send it to him. And maybe it will make it on the program. Maybe it won't. And I sent it, a little card with it. And it was months later. I'd kind of like, oh, I bet it's not going to be on. And that's okay because he can't show everything. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching the program, and what comes up on the screen but Barbie and the creature from the Black Lagoon? It was so cool. And then an added bonus, I mailed him another photo as a thank you. I mailed him the Barbie versus Godzilla.
I love that one.
Godzilla movies too. So it kind of tied in. And I didn't anticipate this one being on the program because I was just mailing it as a thank you. And then a little bit after, you know, I mailed it, lo and behold, completely unexpected, he showed it. So to have one piece shown was total bucket list, and to have two was amazing.
Those are some of my favorite photographs you've created. And for people who are listening, can they find those / buy them off your website?
Everybody sure can. I have every single image on my website. There's over 100, including the two I just mentioned, and I'm always updating it. Like when I get something photographed, I try to get it up there right away.
I really enjoy seeing your artwork, and I know it takes you so much time to create your work. So, once again, thank you for making the time to return to the show. When you first told me that your favorite post apocalyptic B movie was Hell Comes to Frogtown, I knew I had to have you back to discuss it. Would you mind sharing why do you find this movie so charming?
It's funny because I was not aware of this movie until about 5 years ago, and it came out in 1988. It was just one of those, like, I love Rowdy Roddy Piper. I love They Live. And I just think this one kind of fell through the cracks. It was my husband who also loves Rowdy Roddy Piper. He loved They Lived right when it came out, when he was a kid. So when Hell Comes to Frogtown came out afterwards, he made sure to watch it right away. And then he kind of forgot about it. And it was just a random thing he thought about 5 years ago. Quick rewatched it and was like, oh my gosh, Nicole has to see this too. And we watched it, and it is so in our wheelhouse. It just fit with what we love to watch like late at night.
Now, I must divulge that I watched Hell Comes to Frogtown for the first time only about a year ago, so I don't have any long nostalgia for it. I also must confess that I'm terrible at watching movies. When people ask me how I can spend so much time making art, I usually respond it's because I don't have the attention span to sit still and watch TV. It's not that I don't like it, but I have to do something while a movie is playing. Are you like that too, Nicole?
Yes and no. I can go to a movie and sit throughout the movie and totally get into it. But when I'm at home, especially a movie like this, I love to be doing something else, like matting photos, because I mat thousands of photos throughout the year. So I rewatched this last night and I was actually matting photos throughout it because I can pay enough attention because I've seen it before, but I can also have another activity going because I'm like you. It's like there's always something with art that I need to be doing. Like if it's retouching a photo or if it's matting things or something like that. When I'm shooting, I have to have music. But when I'm doing kind of the other things, I love having a movie playing. So, because then I can pause it, I can grab something to eat, I can, when it's a part I really want to get into, I can just sit and watch it.
I also will wander off partway through a movie to go find snacks or refill my drink. And speaking of drinks, the Maenads from ancient Greek mythology were famous for consuming wine while they partied with the god Dionysus. After we discuss the plot of the movie, we'll rate it on the Maenadometer. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I have to ask if you had anything good to eat or drink when you last watched Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Hell Comes to Frogtown is a straight up beer movie. Anything fancier than that, you are watching the wrong movie, I feel. So I would like to say that I had a Coors to match the movie, but I had a classic, just Modelo in a can. That is my favorite down and dirty beer to watch with movies. And like I said, this is a beer movie. The time prior, I did order a Domino's pizza with it as well.
Ah, I wanted to pair this movie with a green beverage because I wanted to be
Ooh.
thematic. And so my partner made us way too fancy of a drink. It's called Death in the Afternoon, and
Ooh.
it's absinthe, Prosecco, and simple syrup.
Oh my gosh. See, I can get totally on board with that, especially because with the name and the green color goes with that movie absolutely perfect.
I'm also going to admit that that was my most enjoyable rewatch of this movie, but maybe the beverage had something to do with it. I will do my best to recount the plot of Hell Comes to Frogtown to refresh our memories, including the memories of our friends joining us. This should also clue in our friends who haven't watched this classic B movie yet. Since you're more familiar with this film, Nicole, I'm inviting you to interject as I relay the synopsis. But before I get started, I have to warn our friends that this entire plot is driven by Rowdy Roddy Piper's penis. And not all of the plot points are consensual.
100%.
In a world overrun by mutant frogs, with a dwindling human population, the movie begins with a Planet of the Apes fake-out gag when a steampunk beekeeper picks up a toy Statue of Liberty. Many masculine names appear in the opening credits, which feature Ben-Day dot photographs that are probably supposed to be newspaper pictures. Despite 10 days of nuclear bombs destroying 10,000 years of human civilization, newspapers still exist, complete with photography departments. I think the 80s were a lot more optimistic.
Yes. Yes, it was.
The audience sees a wanted poster for Sam Hell, who is played by wrestling legend Rowdy Roddy Piper. Am I allowed to only call him by his last name like this is an academic text, or am I always required to refer to him as Rowdy Roddy Piper?
It's funny because I often call him the full thing, but when you read, especially articles about movies, they always try to get rid of the rowdy part. Like they want to, remove the wrestling. I'm like, well, why? We're not talking like Oscar-worthy movies here, right? We can just call him Piper, maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, a man dressed in a khaki uniform threatens to castrate Sam Hell with a broken candy glass bottle because Sam sexually assaulted the khaki man's daughter. A uniformed woman enters and tells the irate father that his daughter changed her mind about being raped because she's pregnant. And that, my friends, is the wildest introduction to a movie I have seen in a while.
The introduction is so insane. Like the beginning part with this, Planet of the Apes thing, it's actually a huge part of the story that they never talk about. This whole dealing arms to the mutants, and it's like so. I watched it like 3 times to try to figure out like what is this beginning, the beginning with the credits. What does that even have to do with anything? And then to introduce your hero as a rapist right off the jump is the most insane bit of movie writing for something that's actually a pretty topical movie I've ever seen, and the most questionable thing that we have to move past.
It's wild, and it
Wild.
gets worse. In a medtech facility, Sam is hooked up to an electronic codpiece, and the woman in charge addresses him as Mr. Hellman. So, is that his real name, or is this a joke about mayonnaise?
I was trying to figure that out because I'm like, okay, did somebody make a mistake? Because he, in the credits and everything you read, is listed as Sam Hell. And at 2 parts in the movie, did they say his last name is Hellman? I'm not sure, but it's just bad writing.
The boss provides exposition revealing that their government needs the protagonist to impregnate as many people as possible to create more people so their government can rebuild. I have to admit that I have a difficult time with the premise of this movie because I first watched it after Roe was overturned.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I live in South Dakota where half the population automatically lost bodily autonomy that day. And our government is really big on strict gender roles while assuring that women lack access to healthcare and childcare.
That's the biggest part of the movie that's hard to fully grasp is that the whole concept of the concept of winning a war by creating a larger population actually just sounds like a legitimate plot during wartime. But then how it's presented, it's so creepy, and cringe. It's awful. And that every woman's sole purpose is to be a breeder,
Mhm.
essentially, and that they want to be a breeder. Hence why, we're supposed to just gloss over how he was originally presented. It's like, oh no, it was okay because now she's pregnant and everybody's thrilled. it's insanity. It's so strange that that was the premise.
I'm guessing that back in the 80s, this was seen as something absolutely ludicrous.
Right.
But right now, where I'm living and in this current time, it doesn't hit the way it's supposed to. And
Right.
I know this movie is supposed to be a comedy, but I'm afraid the South Dakota legislator thought it was a guide to governing.
And that's just it. It's like when you put it in context, I think when it was created, because I was reading some things about how they felt that it could have even been more over the top, like how sort of the exploitive nature of it, because it is meant to be ludicrous. But I think when you watch it now and you watch it through a different lens, it feels different. I think that back, in the late 80s, 90s, and even probably early 2000s, we would just gloss over all
Mm.
that because we know that it wasn't meant seriously as how they want the creators in the movie obviously weren't saying like this is how we hope society is.
Hmm.
And but now it just feels weird.
Yeah. Anyway, Sam signs an agreement stipulating that his codpiece will remain in place permanently, and a blonde medtech employee with huge glasses accompanies Sam on his adventure.
The glasses part is so ridiculous and so 80s to me. It's just, I mean, right off the jump, you gotta die over that.
As an all women's chorus hums, the ants go marching. A tough soldier wipes down a big gun on top of an ambulance looking van that was painted pink. Her name is Sentinella, but my spell check keeps switching it to Citronella, which is appropriate because she repels pests.
Yes. She's fantastic. I think she's supposed to be the real, like, female, badass of the movie, but of course, stunningly beautiful. There's something very appealing about her. She's kind of the woman of few words, but will shoot you.
Nicole, if you could paint any vehicle pink, what would you pick?
Well, I love that vehicle. It's a 1947 Chevy panel van, is what they used in that movie. If I could paint any vehicle pink, I would get like a late 60s muscle car, like a Dodge Charger or something, or a Chevelle, just something completely not what you would want to be this amazing metallic pink. And that's what I would do. And I would drive it everywhere.
Would that pink match your tent for art fairs?
Heck yes, that would. It would be a solid like Barbie pink, and I would use like a metallic fleck. You would not miss it from probably miles away. I might have put some thought into that.
Sam and the bespectacled broad have a terse conversation, setting them up to inevitably fall in love later due to movie plot rules. They're going to Frogtown because a character named Toady abducted fertile human women. The army's plan is to free the women and have Sam knock them up.
Yep, because every woman in the movie they all want to have sex with them and they all want to have babies.
Along a rural road, Sentinella fills up the Pinkmobile's gas tank and Sam runs off into the desert. His electro loincloth beeps, the lights blink, and he curls over in pain. Dr. Glasses informs Sam that if he tries to remove the belt or if he strays too far away, his crotch will explode.
I mean, definitely a motivator to stay close. When you look at it, it's probably like every stereotypical man's worst nightmare.
She explains that her earrings control his procreation belt. That night, Sam removes his shirt and climbs into his sleeping bag. The bifocals babe prances around the campsite in her military-issued camouflage underwear because it's her job to keep the protagonist aroused.
That part is just next level.
Sam wants to stoop, but the woman zaps him with her earring, and the incidental music tells us the scene is funny.
Because nothing like physical torture and psychological to, make for a funny, nice evening.
Later, the tough lady with the gun takes off all her clothes because it's the 1980s, and I think all movies at the time were required to have at least one scene with a topless woman.
Oh, 100%. I was just gonna say that. It's like it wouldn't be an 80s movie without some boobs.
Anyway, their boss catches them together, so Sam yeets the nude lady off his lap. The trio enters the mutant reservation as the sun sets. Sam argues with the women and throws his contract out the car's window, so the women kick him out. He's happy at first until his electro undies start beeping and he has to run after the car so his Grundle guard won't detonate.
You watch it and you're just like, that is some quality writing right there. Let's be honest.
After they reunite, they track down a captive woman who is barely clad in shredded rags and slippers. She's dirty, doesn't speak, and is tied up.
This part is probably the most problematic part of the entire movie. There's no way to work around this part without being it so cringe.
Frau Farsighted injects the feral woman with a syringe in her bum, which causes her to writhe around on the dirty ground while moaning. Completely ignoring the concept of consent, Sam is ordered to impregnate this woman, but he said he can't boink a complete stranger who hasn't brushed her teeth.
And again, it's quality consistency here. We have somebody who's portrayed as assaulting women throughout the countryside. So by that definition, he should just be able to perform, if you're going with the storyline here. But alas.
The blonde boss says she was trained in seduction techniques and takes off all her clothes, revealing her glowing white underwear while she wiggles around in a way that makes us all feel embarrassed.
If that was how they train them in seduction, they need some new teachers.
Sam tells his supervisor to put on her clothes but take off her eyeglasses so she can't see him climb on the captive woman.
Yep. In true 80s fashion, the beautiful woman isn't beautiful unless she removes her glasses. And then it's completely night and day.
Oh, goodness. Let's just skip ahead to the next morning. Sam and the hostage cuddle in the sleeping bag. Apparently, the captive woman was tamed by Sam's magic wand.
Mm-hmm. Because that's all the women want. It's just, Sam Hell's penis.
I hope that was on the posters.
It should be. If it's not on there, it should be.
Oh, anyway, this woman is now dressed in a pink speed suit and is capable of speech. In this universe, mothers are treated as heroes, and the formerly feral female will be picked up by the authorities because she's pregnant.
And will be treated like a queen.
She thanks Sam and his genitals.
Mm-hmm. Because again, that's all the women want. Just want his penis and his babies.
The gruff soldier is now wearing a tiny shirt, but not one of those fabulously designed army-issued bras. Glasses McGee, on the other hand, is dressed like she's put together a last-minute costume before heading to a midnight screening of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, it is something.
She chains herself up, and I should probably admit that I still don't know the name of this character. Nicole, what is her name?
Oh, Spangle. Spangle. Very Ghostbusters-esque, but yeah, Spangle is what they came up with. I'm assuming her last name, she doesn't get any other name.
Anyway, she hands Sam the chain and explains that their ruse requires her to be his prisoner. Sam gives her a makeover by tossing her glasses to the ground and shakes her hair out of the ponytail. So is this when we decided as a country, as a nation, that the glasses ponytail combination is hideous?
I mean, apparently Hollywood decided for us that was just not how they want ladies. For some reason, they look completely different. It's almost like the Clark Kent Superman or Wonder Woman thing. Like somehow it changes them so much. They're unrecognizable.
Yeah, I do have my hair up in a ponytail today. If I took it down, then I'd be gorgeous.
I wouldn't even know who I was talking to. I'd be like, who is this stranger? I better quick leave the meeting. And I have my big old glasses on, so apparently I wouldn't be Sam Hell's type.
Nope. Oh, wait, now we know how to protect ourselves from Sam Hell.
I just have to pull my hair back. You got to throw some glasses on. we'll be able to conquer the remaining male population.
Within Frogtown, we encounter an amphibian lady stripper convulsing on a bar surrounded by nefarious frogmen. A frog is reading The Frog Prince. And watching this again, I have to wonder if Anthony Cousins watched this film before he directed his movie Frogman.
Oh, maybe.
It's a newer movie, and he filmed it in Stillwater, Minnesota.
Oh, interesting. My interest is piqued. I like this.
I got to meet him at the Vortex Film Festival, and oh, it's such a silly movie.
I'm adding this into my list.
Ooh. The human man enters the bar, orders a drink, and does a mighty spit take because his beverage tastes like industrial waste. Hopefully the beer you were drinking when you watched this movie last tasted a little better than that.
It did not taste like industrial waste, nor was it radioactive.
An older man quips that Sam could never hold his liquor, and he introduces himself as Looney and provides a backstory that includes uranium. Sam loves this old guy, and Looney tells the other humans they have to meet Leroy. The stripper bumps into the humans and says, "I love you," which is the top secret code that they loudly explain and discuss.
Because nothing says top secret than telling it to the entire bar.
She is their contact, but Sam follows Looney instead. A frog wearing goggles, a red fez, and a white suit gives Sam a real beer that is barely radioactive.
And clearly a product placement for Coors.
This is when the movie takes a big turn for Orientalism, which is basically a problematic Eurocentric interpretation of Middle Eastern and North African cultures.
Yes, the whole bartering, the conversation here, very problematic. Yes.
The Orientalist frog explains that wenches were brought in recently, and he negotiates a price with Sam for the med tech woman. Sam says that she's great at erotic dancing.
And she has good teeth, too. And I like that we're introduced to a monetary system that's never been discussed. We've no clue what it even means. You know, just throw it in there. Why not?
An eye patch wearing frog interrupts the transaction, abducts the human woman, and punches Sam in his very punchable face.
It is punchable.
I don't wish him any harm, but
There is just something, and maybe it's because he's a wrestler. There's something about him that, yes, he's just easy to punch in the face, and he takes it.
the fancy stripper wakes up Sam with the code phrase, "I love you." She introduces herself as Arabella, and she's sworn to fight Toady to the death.
And even with that, wish to overthrow the evil Toady, but don't worry, there's going to be some time because she too is in love. You know, nothing would make her happier than having sex with Sam Hill.
And Arabella explains that all the men who throw themselves at her are idiots, but Sam is a real man.
A real man.
Sam requests that she cover her face, but his computerized loincloth starts beeping to indicate that he is too far away from his boner overseer.
The fact that they work into the movie her putting a sack over her head is so unbelievable.
The frog lady
man.
attempts to help Sam, but she trips and lands in a plot dumpster, so he must go alone.
Because heaven forbid that those few little wires that she landed on are easy to remove. Somehow it's infinitely tangled, you know, impeding her movement or helping, so that he must go on solo to save the damsel.
Sam uses his dong radar to find his blonde boss. This is all part of the hero's journey, right?
Oh my goodness.
She is encircled by sinister frogs who make a deal with a man wearing a gas mask. Sam falls off a ledge and crushes a crate of guns, but he's knocked out. Looney and Arabella team up.
You got to have the heroes, and apparently the crazy old man and our frog woman are there to save the day.
A vaguely Middle Eastern song plays as Sam's future love interest lies on a circular bed wearing white skivvies. The music kind of sounds like it's trying to be the Arabic song from the Nutcracker.
This is another very problematic part. And the music and the outfit and the other it's something to behold.
5 almost nude women surround the bed while doing a bad interpretive dance while waving polyester veils using choreography that rivals the other 1988 hit movie, Space Mutiny.
Yes, that's very accurate. 100%.
Maybe they had the same choreographer.
They probably did, actually. Oh, my stars.
Oh, Spangle is sweaty and writhing, and a veil accidentally sets off her erection exploding earring.
Which that's some well thought out technology right there. The wind goes by and you could be exploding genitals, Smart.
Meanwhile, the eye patch frog tied up Sam and threatens him with a chainsaw. After Sam explains that his digital dong device will detonate, it beeps a warning. Sam screams to the frog to remove his beeping underpants, and the frog declares, "You are one weird dude."
And I do like that the frog man points out that MedTech wouldn't be so stupid as to, the one element, the one part that they want from this human, that the most important thing, would they risk literally blowing it up? I mean, I like that it's just a random thing that he points that out. And I'm like, exactly.
I mean, they could have attached like an ankle monitor or something else, and just with the whole cod piece in general, that's supposed to be his most precious asset, but he's not properly washing under there. He's got to smell terrible.
But remember, there's a flap.
Oh, it's so gross.
Oh, it's disgusting.
The frog chuckles while holding the cybernetic codpiece, and then it explodes.
A very small, minimal explosion.
Arabella helps Sam escape, but then she's stabbed to death by another frog.
Yes, she was the most random addition. It was supposed to be this important character. She was the connection to overthrowing this horrible person. And then they just quick get rid of her with a screw drill bit or something. Like, there you go.
Next, the actor wearing the most expensive frog mask, who must be Toady, demands that the human woman perform the Dance of the Three Snakes, or else the actors wearing the cheaper frog masks will shoot her.
Definitely blew the budget on his outfit. Although not on his dialogue, just on the mask.
Is the Dance of the Three Snakes a common dance with set moves like the chicken dance?
We wish.
Spangle convulses around while being backlit on a smoky set. Apparently, the three snakes of the aforementioned dance are in the main frog's pants.
I kind of saw it coming the first time I saw it, and I was like, oh, please, no. Please, let's not succumb to that.
I wonder if the person who had to puppeteer his triple boner included this accomplishment on their resume.
If they didn't, that would be a massive oversight. I mean, seriously, if that was me, I would brag about it. I'd put it in the Christmas card letter. I was a 3-penis puppeteer for a frog.
Spangle says she thought of some new steps for the dance and kicks the evil amphibian in the groin.
3 times.
One per snake. He jumps away, and Sam retrieves the human lady as the music indicates that they're in love now.
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's no question about this. The music has now told us they have gone through this together. He has saved her in a way. I mean, she saved herself, but yes.
Sam reveals that his heart necklace belonged to his daughter.
Yeah, that was such a random, unnecessary part of the plot. I mean, I think just trying to move him into a really likable role, but completely unnecessary.
The woman beats up the guards, kicks down a door, and the 5 captive women in the bad Halloween genie costumes declare that it's a miracle.
It's a miracle we've made it through this long.
Sentinella shows up in the pink vehicle and asks the guards, "Are you boys going to eat dirt or lead?" As the writers high-five themselves, the actors lay prostrate on the ground.
And she says, good choice.
There are some guns and shooting, and the five ladies coo as they pour into the van. Their lady bits are covered with brightly colored fake fur or feathers, and they're draped in chiffon.
It reminds me of Austin Powers' The Fembots.
Oh,
Doesn't
yeah.
it? It's along those lines. Not post-apocalyptic at all. Somehow, after all the nuclear war, we can still have these feather boa-esque negligees for ladies.
I was wondering what you thought of these outfits. And does Barbie have anything in her wardrobe that's similar with this 1980s futuristic fashion?
I tell you, I don't have anything, but it would be, I wouldn't mind seeing if I could fashion something because there is something so ridiculous about it that I think can be delightful.
Oh no, do you have a Rowdy Roddy Piper doll that you could put in with the photo shoot?
Oh my gosh, I don't, but I'm sure they exist. They're a different size though.
Mm.
So I'd have to do some little trickery with the perspective and such, or maybe some Photoshop. But now I tell you, I know, now I'm thinking. Now I'm thinking.
I think that'd be funny though to have him really little though and just lean
That's
into the
true.
scale change.
Oh my gosh. Yes, this is gonna happen.
Sam helps his mentor hobble to the vehicle, and they peel out of there as the frogs shoot. The older man dies as the pastel ladies fawn over him.
It's touching. I mean, this character that we just topically know is gone, and for some reason it's a complete downer for everybody. They're very sad for the man that they've known for 2 seconds.
In their frogmobile, the frogs chase the humans. The human soldier shoots at them with a giant gun mounted on the pink vehicle, but the frogs shoot her. The man in the gas mask orders the humans out of their car, and I was surprised to notice that all the women are wearing flat shoes.
I actually thought that was kind of a nice touch. It was unexpected. I noticed it during her dance, the three snakes, that she was almost wearing like a ballet style shoe. I thought it was unexpected, and I wondered why, because it doesn't really visually make sense. But as somebody who wears flats, because there's no way I oddly appreciated it.
That is one of the lines where I lose my willing suspension of disbelief in post-apocalyptic movies is when the women are tromping around in the desert or the wasteland in high heels. Like,
Yes,
I don't even want to wear those in regular everyday life. And when
right.
I'm running for my life, I need flat, practical shoes.
Exactly. Exactly. They got it right there on the shoes.
The gas mask man reveals himself to be the angry father from the beginning of the film. He's mad that there are too many women, and he monologues at the group while revealing his evil plan.
Yeah, this plan that actually seems like it should be a major part of the movie, but isn't. It was so random. They hint on it at the beginning, and now all of a sudden we see it again, and you're like, okay, it's so strange. I do love when he's doing his epic speech about how the women are running everything and how horrible it is. How they film it though, like where it's meant to be like he's drawn, you're just going on kind of like this idiot. I like how they film that because they're basically saying like, no, this dude is just spouting off and nobody agrees with it. I give him credit on that.
Sam has a katana on his back, which he can't reach. He instructs one of the liberated bimbos to lift up the sword so he can grab it, but she refuses at first because she's a pacifist.
Hmm, those pacifists.
Everyone rolls their eyes, but she relinquishes and helps. This is one of the most realistic parts of the movie because reaching for a sword over your shoulder to your back would be incredibly difficult. And
Oh, absolutely.
I may or may not know this because I have a plastic set of katanas that go with a Deadpool costume, and I can confirm that it's impossible to grab those swords because when you reach up, the sword handle tips away from your body.
Right, right. Exactly.
Sam hurls the katana at the bad guy. Despite Sam checking to see if this new villain is dead, he's not. So Sam has to kill him a second time. He then puts his freshly fired gun, which I would imagine would be hot, in his belt pointed right at his groin.
I mean, because he's clearly a masochist at this, or whoever wrote the movie was like really, really wanted some torture in that area.
It seems unsafe to me in any circumstance, but considering his jewels are a national treasure.
Yeah. He should have actually been scolded and restrained by Spangle. He could have damaged something.
Anyway, after the explosion, Sam sees some random car parts piled up that kind of look like the Barbie mobile was destroyed. The antagonist amphibian hops over to fight Rowdy Roddy Piper in tribute to the epic battle of Shatner versus the Gorn.
Yep, right on Vasquez Rocks there. 100% same location. But you got the Shatner-Gorn connection, and it's very obvious. Oh my gosh, I was dying.
The Gorn fight scene is one of my favorite Star Trek moments.
It's cinematic gold. It should be the fight scene that defines all fight scenes.
Now, I have to ask, what is your favorite era of Star Trek? Because I know you have photographed some Star Trek Barbies, and those appear to be in the classic 60s uniforms.
It's tough because there's so many iterations of Star Trek, but I'm generally more of a TOS, which would be the original series, because that sort of like set the bar and it set everything going. And then there's also the campy factor that goes with it. But as far as a quality of shows, I would say you can't compete with The Next Generation, with Picard and everything. That has a huge arsenal of fantastic episodes with messaging. And then I like the new Strange New Worlds too. I don't like all the new shows, but I do like Strange New Worlds. But I'm definitely more of a TOS person.
I just love that era of 60s campiness. Yes. And I recently started watching, there's a newer Star Trek cartoon that's a parody. Decks. Yes, mm-hmm. It's very silly, but I just enjoy when it's leaning into that ridiculousness.
Yes, they made another cartoon in the 70s, but they're more successful with the new one. Back then, I don't think people understood a cartoon for adults.
Well, speaking of not kid shows, in this movie, the frog kicks the human in the junk. Yep. They fight, and the human pokes the frog in the eyes, Three Stooges style, kicks him in the bits, resulting in the frog dangling off the edge of a cliff. Sam chops off the terrible toad's hands, causing him to fall to his death.
And if you look, his hand is back when he falls. A little bit of a bad editing there, but...
Sam returns to the wrecked car, and Spangle runs toward him. During the final battle, she had time to put on some clothes.
Oh, and everybody was A-okay. They just were hiding. They never hid before. But now all of a sudden, they're safely hiding, just waiting for him to finish with our evil toad.
The other women are dressed in the same chiffon outfits because the budget was too small for a second costume change.
Correct.
Sam and Spangle yell at each other and then kiss. She tries to boss him around, but he reveals that he doesn't have his boner bomb anymore.
And yet just her sunny, amazing personality and his love for her and his just deep humanity what keeps him with her.
Sam gives his daughter's necklace to the soldier as a consolation prize because he loves her boss instead.
And she never got to bone him.
Yeah. I'd rather have jewelry. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As Spangle snuggles the main guy in the stolen frogmobile, she informs him that she'll ask for vacation time after he bangs all the fertile women.
And gets them pregnant. You just can't bang them. They gotta be baby machines here.
Speaking of inexplainable plot twists with baffling small budgets, Nicole, do you know who else isn't getting paid enough for their ridiculous work?
Oh my gosh. Yes. All of who are you going to say?
Well, I'm certainly not getting paid enough. So let's take an ad break.
Absolutely.
Hey there, you lovely people. I want you to be part of the Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse community by joining the Department of Dystopian Studies at patreon.com/Claire Lockhart, spelled patreon.com/KLAIRELOCKHEART. I'm not going to pressure you into signing up for a monthly subscription because that would be awkward. But I would like you to check out all the artsy resources I made just for you. Welcome back to the show, my friends. We're going to discuss Hell Comes to Frogtown, and afterwards we'll rate it on the Maynado-meter. Before we do that, I want to remind all you fabulous people that the purpose of Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse is to talk about dystopian media through an intersectional feminist lens. This means that we want to explore how typically marginalized people are treated within end-of-the-world narratives. I know some people think that critiquing movies from the past isn't fair because it was a different time, but I would argue that it's okay to discuss how stories from the past impact us today. Older movies are accessible and influential, and we should feel comfortable talking about our reactions. Passively consuming media without any discussion would be very bland. I also want to highlight that it's completely okay for us to disagree. Our backgrounds and personal experiences shape how we interpret the films we watch, which is part of the reason chatting about movies can be fun. Nicole, we should just get this out of the way and talk about Sam Hell's introduction to the audience.
There is no way to gloss over the fact that he is introduced to the audience as a rapist. I mean, that is how he is presented right off the jump. That is the first word said about him. And even though it's like, they immediately sort of say, oh, but then the girl, recanted because she got pregnant, it doesn't make it better. But then what I find interesting is that you have this, and I think now if you made a movie and you introduce somebody like that, you couldn't move past that in the movie. That's sort of the end all because it's like how do you move past that? And I think when this movie was made, that wasn't what the view was because if you look at the rest of the character development with him and how he's portrayed, he's not portrayed as this aggressive rapist. They said he was looking for him. He has a track record and he's a criminal. But then you watch the rest of the movie and it has all these problems. But the character, I think how he's presented is not supposed to, that's not supposed to be how we feel about him throughout the movie. I don't know. It's bizarre. You would never see a movie nowadays that wants you to end with him being the hero start off this way.
It's so strange and it does not fit with his character. And then I have to ask, do you know if Rowdy Roddy Piper is from Wisconsin or Canada? Because his speech patterns betray him as being way too polite to being that terrible of a man.
Right. I feel like he's from Canada. That's just it. It's like the writing for him. I mean, it's not like great writing or anything, but then like how he actually interacts with the women, minus, when he has to perform and impregnate people. But his overall demeanor as written for this movie towards his women counterparts don't match with him being the sexual predator at all. At least that's my take on it. And I think that's why I can enjoy the movie more than if you just watched it now. I honestly think poor writing to have that as your first introduction to a character who isn't supposed to be a villain. The rest of the movie, he is not a villain.
It doesn't line up. And
No.
I wonder if the part was written for somebody else originally or.
Well, and I would argue that if you had a different actor in that part, it wouldn't be successful in that we like him by the end. Because I still can watch the movie and really enjoy Sam Hell because it's Rowdy Roddy Piper. But like, I think a different actor in that wouldn't exude what he exudes. Because again, it's not like this is great film writing. We don't have like this amazing dialogue that's moving or anything. It's pretty topical. But It's how he presents that character. I can still see him as the hero and not just some sexual predator misogynist.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just me. I don't know. I've watched it a couple times recently. It's such a disconnect for me.
Yeah, I think disconnect is a great way to explain
Mhm.
that, how he interacts with the women versus how his character is presented.
Right.
But Nicole, how do you feel about this post-nuclear world where women have prominent roles in the government and military?
And now that is an interesting part of the movie, is that it starts off with women totally running everything, regardless of how that looks, like that it's just this baby making machine. And then you end the movie with that still being the case. It never changes. There isn't a change in the power struggle is not shifted to at the end, at the culmination of the movie. It's not the men are in charge. Sam Hell's not in charge. He actually has no higher standing than what he did before. And the one person that was really anti it, we're how he's viewed and showed, he's actually kind of a joke. Like when he was doing that long monologue and how it was just portrayed in the film as just ridiculous that he felt that way. So that I think is unique in an 80s movie that's post-apocalyptic, that the women are actually in charge and that does not change.
Yeah, there's so many dystopian movies where women don't exist, or there's maybe one or two of them.
Mhm.
And so it's unusual to have a movie that actually has some women in the population, and then they're the ones that have a higher ranking, but there's also that everything tied up with being able to reproduce.
Right, right. But the women that we are introduced to, Spangle, and then you're the first woman who I don't think was ever given a name at the interrogation, they're clearly non-fertile women, but yet they're in positions of great power, essentially.
Hmm.
So it's an interesting kind of yin and yang that I find fascinating because those parts are actually kind of almost unheard of in the 80s.
Now, I feel like I would have enjoyed the absurdity of this movie a lot more if I wasn't currently so worried about the status of people with uteruses. It's a little difficult for me to get lost
Right.
in that plot because the government in South Dakota is way too interested in everyone's reproductive
Right,
qualities.
right.
And even when women want to be mothers, they lack support here. I had a friend who died recently because she had postpartum depression and lost access to necessary medical care because South Dakota is terrible for women. And according to the Department of Health, 56.1% of our counties are maternity deserts.
Oh my goodness. That's the problem is that even though it's meant to be kind of this topical 80s movie, the topics, unbeknownst to them when they made the movie in the 80s, are very, in a weird way, relevant now in such a negative way. That's hard because that's non intentional for the movie, but an unfortunate association.
We were joking at the beginning about how the 80s was so much more optimistic, thinking there would still be newspapers.
Right. Like how the narration is. It's so funny. It's this deadpan sort of female voice. And I like how they're like a difference of opinion. And they say it so almost funny. And they're showing these atomic blasts. And then it's like they went to the peace table, atomic blast. It's sort of like, yeah, their view of it, I don't think they would have any idea where we're at now when they made those movies.
Oh, I just thought of something. Maybe the reason all the women got to have flat shoes is because they're the ones in charge of the government.
Ooh, because what woman in their right mind, if they're running everything, would put everybody in stilettos?
If they're
I
designing
think.
their own uniforms.
What's interesting then is that you'd almost think that you would have found like a woman writer or something. You know what I mean? Like it's an interesting thing that part of the movie that I don't think a lot of people would pick up on. And you'd almost think that there would be like a woman writer or something, when doing the designs for those outfits. It's totally not on brand with other ones from that era.
Maybe
Mm.
they had a consultant and talked to a lady.
Well, clearly they only consulted on the footwear. The rest of the stuff is tragic.
Now, I don't want to end on a bleak note, Nicole. So I have to ask, why do you find Rowdy Roddy Piper so delightful?
He has like this indescribable aura. I've watched many movies with him, and it's always there. It doesn't matter what the movie is about. And he's always in a role where there's going to be some ass kicking. You know, he's a wrestler. They're going to make him fight. The fight in They Live is one of the most classic fight scenes of all times. There's just something so likable and non-aggressive in a weird way. I know that sounds strange, but he's like somebody that when you watch the movie, how he presents it, and again, it's not like this is great acting or anything, but there's almost like a softness. And I don't know if that's the right word, but it's an approachability that you don't always see, especially in B movies with bad acting, technically. You feel like he's really invested in his role and there's just something you feel like if you would have at the time run into him on the street, you could go and have a beer with him or something or give him a hug. There is something that he exudes that's really special. And I never watched wrestling because, you know, of course, that's what he's the most famous for. And I think in wrestling, he was often a villain. I mean, I know he's super popular. I just don't know enough about it. And of course, those roles are completely different. The back and forth with the two guys, very macho. But in the movie roles, he comes off as so non-pretentious.
It seems like when they were making the movie, they were having a good time too.
Yes. Yes, he seems like he's oddly invested. And again, I've seen some other movies and he exudes that same energy. That's why I know it's not the writing, it's him and how he approaches these roles. And to me, it just feels like that's probably just his personality eking through. And because you have that realness and again, the approachability, he just comes off as so darn sweet. And I've read a few other people that mention it, that even refer to him as like a national treasure because there's something just about him. It's almost indescribable. I love him. I wish back in the day I would have run into him. I would have given him a hug.
If you would have run up to him and said, I love you, he would have thought you were just making a reference to this movie.
But I'm wearing glasses, so I
Oh.
would have been protected from anything. Now, if he had handed me a paper bag, we would have problems.
Oh no. Now I really am invested in you getting a Rowdy Roddy Piper doll to include in your artwork.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I'll go on to eBay right after this and start searching around. It's a necessity. It's the universe has told me, like, wait, this might be some subject matter.
You do such a great job of incorporating other toys and characters within your Barbie photography. And I remember last year for the annual Thunder Domesticity Art Exhibition, you submitted the Gilman Goals Barbie with the Gilman and Barbie, and they're floating on those little inner tubes. And it cracks me up to this day. I love it so much.
Cute. When you kind of pair them in these more fun, fanciful ways, it's like, you know, you watch the old Creature from the Black Lagoon movies, and, you know, he's the villain. I mean, ultimately, he's portrayed as the monster. And then you watch and you're like, oh, no, wait, we're the monsters, actually. He was just living his life. And I kind of like playing on that. It's like, well, no, I mean, he was just enjoying his life in the lagoon, and Barbie, who would clearly see that quality in him, you know, they can just float around and enjoy the beautiful sun and hang out.
I think that's why I also enjoy your artwork and find it delightful, is because you incorporate your sense of humor into your work.
Well, thank you. I figure if you're not having fun, I can't even bother with Barbie.
Well, let's rate Hell Comes to Frogtown using the Maynard-O-Meter. This is the metric we use to evaluate diversity and dignity in doomsday media. It's named after the Maenads from ancient Greek mythology, who were the legendary wild women who romped around in the woods and thwarted the patriarchy. There's a myth where the Maenads decapitated a terrible king, and that's why we'll use a scale of 0 to 5 skulls. A movie that is diverse and treats people of marginalized genders well will earn a high score, But a story that doesn't include women or treats them poorly will deserve a low score. This rating is independent of if we personally enjoy the film. Do you mind if I share mine first?
Absolutely. I love it.
Whew. I'm going to give this movie 1.5 skulls. There are so many things wrong with this film that I don't even know where to begin, but I will keep in mind that it's supposed to be a comedy. There are other apocalyptic movies that are completely centered on the premise that women in the future only exist to churn out babies, and it's wild how no one questions this plot point. At least this movie is attempting to satirize the concepts, but I don't know how effective it was when it was new, and I will admit that my current context clouds my perception. While I enjoy that Sergeant Spectacles was in charge and she was accompanied by the other tough soldier, they were both ensorcelled by Rowdy Piper. Even the frog lady, Arabella, wanted to hop on Sam. While there is a lot to critique, I would like to give the movie credit for not absolutely brutalizing and humiliating every single woman. Plus, the women got to wear flat shoes. So that is why I will award it 1.5 skulls.
And I think that is very fair. I'm actually going to go a little higher, and I think a lot of it is based on my context of seeing it originally at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually going to go 3. And I think why I'm basing that is you have sort of how we talked before, how it starts off unapologetically with the women in charge. It almost alludes to the fact that they weren't in charge before. Everything got screwed up with the atomic wars and everything. And then they somehow were the voice of reason. And then that part was never argued negatively, except for by somebody who is your villain, who we're not supposed to sympathize with. And then by the end, that dynamic not changing, I appreciated, and I thought that was rare. And the fact that the women characters were just about as developed, I would say, as like Sam was the most developed character, but Spangle was still pretty well developed. They were all talking roles for the most part, minus some of the passives. And I still thought that was unique for the era of movie, being the 80s. And I think because, again, I watched it earlier, I'm able to still hold on to some of those positives more than if I had just watched it today. I think I would have a different view of it if I watched it for the first time right now.
And I think that's part of what was influencing my reaction to it.
Right.
But I always enjoy learning what my friends think about dystopian movies, which is one of the main reasons I created this podcast. This gives us the chance to enjoy each other's company and share our thoughts, whether we agree or disagree. I also cherish that I get to include all the amazing people at the unaccredited College of Claire because they always get the opportunity to vote on the doomsday topics selected for the show at patreon.com/Claire Lockhart. My wonderful friends at UCK gave Hell Comes to Frogtown an average of 1.5 skulls.
Honestly, if I was watching it now, like for the first time, and again, because for me, it has such nostalgia to it, because it's hard to fully take out your personal views of it. And again, because I do like Rowdy Piper so much, I can focus on a lot of the positives, because the problematic parts are unbelievably problematic. Unbelievably so.
And if I would have rated this movie after the first time I saw it, it would have been lower. But because I know you enjoyed it, and then to prepare for this discussion, I have watched it numerous times, and it does get more endearing the more I watch it.
And that's just it. I've seen it like half a dozen times probably. And I think that's the amazing thing with movies as an artistic medium is how they change so much when we view them. And our ratings of this may go up and down depending on many other factors as well. And it's such a unique art form. And I appreciate it and I love it.
Nicole, thank you once again for being on the show. I couldn't think of anyone better to chat about Hell Comes to Frogtown with me.
The honor is mine. I was so unbelievably excited to get invited.
I know you are so busy with all the different events you have going on. Is there anything coming up this spring or summer you want to give us a little preview for?
Our Uptown Art Fair, we're adding in some fun new activities that are kind of TBD at the moment, but I think are going to be really cool, larger artistic activities and events within Minneapolis. That's going to probably start later spring. And I'm going to start posting about it and I'll put it on my website because a lot of the details are still kind of secret.
Ooh. Before you leave, Nicole, I must remind our friends listening to stay tuned for the announcement of the next recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree. I also have to shamelessly plug your incredibly delightful photography, which our friends can see at your website, NicoleHuff.com, which is spelled NicoleHuff.com. Nicole, this was so much fun. Thank you again.
Oh my gosh, I had a blast. Thank you so, so much.
This show is part of the Department of Dystopian Studies at the unaccredited College of Clare. Is UCK simply my academia-themed Patreon page and not a real art show? Well, you'll have to determine this for yourself by visiting patreon.com/ClaireLockhart. Because UCK is my project, I have the freedom to bestow honorary degrees to the most amazing people I know. Today, I am pleased to introduce the next recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree, Sam Drapeau. You may remember Sam from when we discussed the movie Prey from the Predator franchise on a previous episode, or perhaps you own one of their Skeletor is Love prints. Sam is a wonderful visual artist who specializes in various media, including painting, digital art, and comics. If you also enjoy nerdy art, head over to sam-drapeau.mailchimpsites.com, and that's SAM-DRAPEUX.MAILCHIMPSITES.com. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Sam!
Hey.
Hello, Sam. I'm so happy you could join me.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
I heard that you just finished a commission for another podcast.
Yeah, the podcast called The Fellowship of the Mic for my friend. Yeah. She commissioned me to create a podcast cover for her new co-host.
That's really exciting. You are incredibly versatile. I know you're so busy, and this is why I'm delighted you could carve out time in your schedule to be here. You are an incredibly hardworking artist, and unless our friends listening are all also artists, they may not understand that making art is only a fraction of how artists spend their time. First, they have to come up with the ideas, develop the skills, and then decide on the medium before they can create anything. Then they have to spend even more time sharing their artwork publicly. And often this is all volunteer work. This is why I want to peer pressure our friends into visiting your website and possibly commissioning you, since now we know you do podcast cover art. How did you decide what to design for Chandra?
So she asked me originally to just incorporate like all things nerdy and just anything related to their interests. And so I kind of asked, like, besides obviously Lord of the Rings, what else would they like me to draw? And they talked about how they liked Game of Thrones and Miyazaki movies and just a bunch of other stuff. And so I already knew I wanted to draw dragons. That's like what I always draw. Uh,
Excellent. So, to earn your honorary degree, I am going to ask you 5 quick questions so our friends listening can get to know you better.
I'm ready.
First of all, Sam, what is one of your favorite post-apocalyptic video games?
Recently, I started playing this game called Stray. I usually play like zombie video games, and so I didn't know what this was going to be about other than you're playing a cat. And so because of the name, I just assumed there would be maybe other cats or like humans, but it's really you're surrounded by robots and you find out like all the humans are gone. And I recently had a part in the game where I ran into some AI art that apparently has evolved into where the robots are just creating art on their own.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is the future. All right. Like, wonderful.
I haven't heard of that before. Thank you for sharing. Next, what skills do you rely on when it feels like the world is ending?
Lately, I've been relying on my resilience and determination. I've been working a lot as usual, but I also have been taking three very hard psychology classes this semester as prerequisites to get into grad school. And being out of school for like 8 years, and then jumping into three classes has been a challenge. But I have the other normal challenges like my family and my world has felt like it's been ending a lot lately, though. There's just been so many life changes as well as just circumstances of this country. My son was recently diagnosed with diabetes. There's just been a lot of things going on.
To make an abrupt topic change, I'll ask you the third question, which is, would you rather fight a fire-breathing dragon the size of a bunny or a bunny the size of a dragon?
Hmm. That's kind of a hard one. I feel like I would maybe rather fight the little dragon just because maybe I could befriend it and it could just be my pet. I would love a little tiny dragon.
And it's tiny and it breathes fire so it can heat up your tea when it gets cold.
Yeah.
Roast little marshmallows. My fourth question is, could you tell us about a time when you were brave?
Well, I mean, I could just go back to talking about like my son when he got diagnosed. It was a really scary time, and we even had the nurse yell at us. She was very angry, and everyone else had the perfect bedside manner, but it was like having her react in such a visceral way really scared me more than anything. And like, I had to be brave for that and be there for him during that time. It was really hard.
Yeah, one of the last times we chatted, you told me a story about how you were ready to fight a bobcat or a mountain lion. And so
Yep.
dealing with medical emergencies is so frightening, but your versatility and your bravery is amazing. And I just want to commend you for all that tenacity that you have and how you are willing to fight for your family and the people that you care about.
Yeah, and I guess I originally was gonna bring up the when I was backpacking and I ran into a bobcat that like almost pales in comparison. So like, I think about that. I'm like, yeah, I'd definitely fight that bobcat again. Like it definitely feels like much easier.
My last question, Sam, is how would you encourage us to work together during challenging times?
Keep observing and looking out for those around you and keep in mind that some people might be struggling, just as much or worse than you. And as a community, we're stronger together and we just need to organize and plan for our future and fix things. And something I've learned with my new day job that I have, working with kids with autism, is that like persistence and integrity and compassion for one another, those qualities can, help keep us grounded and focused on helping each other and creating safe spaces for people where we can all live comfortably like we deserve.
I know that we're definitely going through a lot individually and as people, as a country, as a world. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time to chat with me because when I'm able to talk with my friends and hear where they're coming from, it helps me feel less isolated. And I hope that everyone listening gets to feel a little bit more comforted by knowing that there are some great people who have your back, like Dr. Sam. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Sam.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse was created and edited by a cheeseball named Claire Lockhart, who is me. You can find me at clairelockhart.com. That's spelled KLAIRELOCKHEART.com. If you're an artist, you should head to the Events tab on my website to check out my call for entry for the next Thunder Domesticity National Group Exhibition. I'd love to see your dystopian artwork. I also need to thank Aaron C. Packard of Aaron C. Packard Productions for providing the voice work and my recording equipment. You can see his photography and videography work at aaronpackard.com, spelled AARONPACKARD. Finally, I need to thank you, my wonderful friends, for listening.